You're listening to Free Mama Radio, where we believe you can have both a successful business and show up as the mom you want to be. I'm your host, Lauren Golden, a mom who built a full-time income working part-time hours. Now, I help other moms like you learn how to work from home on your own terms, take control of your schedule, and make more money so you can live a totally awesome, guilt-free life. I am on a mission to make sure that no mother has to choose between family and financial stability. So if you've been wondering, can I really have it all? This podcast will give you the answers.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Free Mama Radio. I'm so excited to be here with my friend Julie Ciardi. We've been catching up after over 2 years since I have been on her podcast. It is so good to be connected again. Julie is a former Fortune 500 marketing VP turned multi-passionate entrepreneur. She is the podcast host of Ignite Your Side Hustle. She believes that there has never been a better time for women to create an additional income stream that is aligned to her passions and purpose on this planet. Amen. She also believes that it is the wild west out there for these women. They are wasting so much time and money and not making any money. I'm so glad you're here today because this is one of my soapbox items on the internet as well. And it's causing friction with their spouse, affecting their confidence and robbing them of their dreams. I see this every day, Julie. With this in mind, Julie is dedicated to helping women create profitable side hustles that gives them joy, purpose, and profit with proven timeless business strategies in today's online world. I mean, is there a better time for us to be sitting down and having this conversation?
Never. Now is the time.
What a fantastic bio. I was telling Julie, everybody sends over their professional bio. If you've never been interviewed, you have it and you just send it over your one sheet and it's beautiful and fabulous, but it can get a little lengthy. And I told her before I started reading, I'm like, no, I'm going to read this whole thing because this, you're painting a little picture for me of who, it's so true. So before we get into your background, because I'm tickled about this bio, seriously. Why do you think so many people are wasting so much time and money, and what should they be doing instead? We're just going to go right into it, Julie, because this is some powerful stuff right here.
Well, absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you for what you're doing because you helped lead the way. Even when I found you, I was like, oh, wow, this is so powerful because this is how I started. When I was going to make this leap, I was in corporate for 18 years. It was people like you and your podcast and books and things that helped me pave the way. However, that being said, the amount of ads, the amount of courses, programs, coaches, all the things. I'm not saying they're all bad. They're not. There's some fantastic ones out there, but the market is getting a bit flooded with that. And so the inkling that your Facebook profile is that you are starting a business or looking into starting a business, or you start browsing, boom, you're going to start getting all of these ads on Instagram, on Facebook. And I fell into the trap. I totally fell into the trap. The amount of courses and masterminds and programs and all the things. And there's a time and a place for all of it, but we can get so trapped in two things. One, in just information consumption and not taking action. And then the second thing is that there's actually a lot of ways to do things. So what happens is we'll listen to one expert on one podcast say, go do it this way. And then we hear it on a different podcast, do it this way. Now we're confused, or worse, we try both out and we're never actually being consistent on trying one thing and actually seeing if it works. And then we're throwing our hands up I think I tried every launch strategy under the sun when I was first, growing my business. And really, if I had probably picked one and just kept launching over and over again, it would have worked. But I would launch once and then move on to the next and on to the next, because copy right now is at an all-time amazing, right? If you don't notice that in your feed, you are being 100% targeted with the exact message from another entrepreneur who is trying to help you. And trust me, I run ads too. I get it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that we have to be so aware and try to put the blinders on and focus in on working with one person, listening to and putting it all in, because otherwise it is the wild, wild west.
I love that. And the truth is, what I'm thinking is all roads lead to Rome, and they do. What's so cool, for the most part, you got to do your due diligence, make sure the people are legit, find your social proof, do your homework, don't be lazy, right? But all of these strategies work. That's what, for the most part, that's why they're all being taught. And I agree with you. I think it's so easy to try it once. And we're like, well, that person's so successful. And obviously they made $1 million overnight. It doesn't work, or it doesn't work for me. And so we move on to the next, we get the shiny object syndrome. So I love this. Great advice about just, you guys, like, have a little discernment, have a little patience, right? Test and tweak. Like, I love all of these things. All right. Now let's get to know Julie better now that we've dissected her bio and how fantastic it is. So take us back. You said you worked at the same company for like decades, and then you had a boutique. Like, tell us your whole life story, and then end with your really exciting news for what's happening at the beginning of 2021.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And really, again, sharing the story, I really hope that it helps anyone that's listening where they're at with what's possible, because that is what was the fuel that helped me be able to make a massive transition for myself and my family. I have 3 children. I have now a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So when I was starting this journey of like, I don't think I'm actually living up to my purpose, and I want to, do something different. My kids at the time were 13, 11, and like 2. And I'm the primary breadwinner. I, was my husband, God bless him. He is a sergeant in our local police department. And I had a multiple 6-figure job as a marketing vice president at a Fortune 100 company, a name everyone knows. And I felt very trapped. I kind of did that typical path because guess what? When I graduated college in 1996, there were no online entrepreneurs. Okay. That did not exist. All the stuff that you teach, that didn't exist. It really didn't. I mean, were there freelance some things? Yes, but you didn't have the internet the way it is to be able to find your clients and all the things. And so really the only entrepreneur examples I had was like, if you owned your own hair salon or a boutique, or maybe, you owned a restaurant. And that was not the path I wanted to go down. And so I did what, most people do. You graduate college, you find a company to go work for. I got my MBA part-time at night, and I just thought that was the path I was on. But I always, even then, was like, is this it? Is this it? Is this really it? And the beautiful thing is, I'm very thankful for the company that I was with, because for most of the time that I was there, I mostly worked from home, which is kind of like everyone's dream. And it's kind of why the whole online entrepreneurship became about. So attractive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I had the laptop life, not really. I was on my laptop all day long on conference calls from the time I started to the time I ended, but I was home. And I know, your audience is moms too. And, for me, I had two kids at the time. And I really wanted to not miss a school play. I didn't want to miss soccer games that started at 4:15 or whatever it was. And so it really worked at the time. I, was working a job I didn't love, but I had the flexibility. And that was really, really big. And so other than when I traveled, I was working from home. But I always felt like, okay, when the kids graduate and they move on, then I'm going to do my own thing. But in that course of the 18 years, I actually, I got divorced from my 2 older kids' dad, got remarried to my now husband, the police officer, and we had another child. So I was, 39 and I had my 3rd baby. And now it's like, woo, okay, I keep saying I'm going to do my own thing when the kids leave. That's a whole lot far away from now, right? And it's funny how God, the universe, comes in to interject on your behalf. And I kept saying I wanted to do my own thing, and knew that I wasn't going to take the chance. I wasn't going to take the risk of leaving the safety. And because you build your life around your income, okay, just like everyone does. So we had this huge house. We, were going on these big vacations. Money wasn't an issue, but something was missing. I had that gap. And I will say in that time, it was funny. I had a friend of mine who was in a network marketing company, and she was like, you should totally do this with me. And I'm like, it wasn't money. I didn't want money. I was so bored. I was not being challenged in my job, even though I was a vice president of marketing. I just didn't feel the connection. I didn't feel the passion. And so I had a little fun with a little thing on the side, really not making anything of it. But it was it almost opened the door, if you will. It's I opened the door and I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world out there outside of corporate I had no idea existed. I started listening to podcasts. I started being I had no clue that there were online.
I think MLMs are a gateway to entrepreneurship for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was it just opened the door for me. So at the same time, the company I was with changed their workforce strategy. From 2002, I was working from home. Okay. They changed their workforce strategy for everyone to go back into an office. Now, I kind of like was chuckling this year because I'm like, ooh, they made a bad move because they basically brought everyone back into an office and they were in the most expensive cities in the entire country. So I had the option of either like commuting 2 hours a day, so 4 hours total, both ways to New York City. And that was not going to be an option for me. There was no way. My 3 kiddos, no way I was going to be that far away from them. And we couldn't move because my husband's in a police department. We're not moving. So I knew it was time I had to do something. And I started the typical like, okay, maybe there's a job around here, 2 hours from a major city gets a little hard. And I did get offered a job for a director of marketing at a company locally. It was like a third of what I was making at this other company. And I was like, no. So I turned to my husband and I said, look, if I'm going to make a third of what I was making and we can't move, I think it's time for me to try my own thing. And I crunched the numbers I was doing. And I didn't even know what that was, Lauren. Like, I got to tell you, I still wasn't sure. And I was so quick to kind of abandon all that experience that I had in corporate and my MBA and all the things. I thought it had to be something different. And I still didn't believe you could really make money online. I really didn't. In my heart, I'm like, it was still too far removed for me. I wasn't enough in the circles. I didn't have any friends in that space yet. So I didn't know it was possible. So guess what I did? Instead of maybe exploring further, I'm like, I'm going to open my own store. I love fashion. I love style. It's something I've always loved. We don't have any shopping around here. I'm going to open my own boutique. Crazy thought. I don't recommend it. I definitely don't recommend it. It was part of my journey to be able to grow a brand and a business and all the ins and the outs. I mean, I had employees, all the things because I launched it while I was still at the company being a vice president of marketing, because I knew I needed to build it up before I could make the leap. But here's another really interesting thing that we did. And I think your listeners will find this interesting. I had an accountant say to me once, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. And
amen.
We were, I had this house, it was 4,000 square feet. The taxes were like $20,000 a year in taxes for the house, right? And I was handcuffed to the house because of my job and all the things. And I said to my husband, I'm like, what if we actually downsized? We're on this path in life, right? Like you get the apartment and then you get the starter house and then you buy the bigger house and it's just up, up, up. And I thought, what if we went backwards a little bit so that we could go upwards in a different direction? And that's exactly what we did. We sold, so thank God he was on board because he was like, this house is too big and I don't want this big of a house. So he was on board.
I love that. And you're actually not the only entrepreneur that I know that has done that, where, at Free Mama Live this year, we had a speaker that was fantastic. It was actually a husband and wife duo. And they talk about when one person in the family chooses entrepreneurship, the whole family chooses entrepreneurship. And so it's up to you to kind of communicate that. But, you talked about how people aren't making money and there's friction with their spouses. And I'd love to get into that a little bit. I love that this was something that at least on
the honeymoon part of it.
Yeah, the honeymoon part of it.
We'll get into the not so honeymoon part of it because I'm really open about talking about that because I hear
it's important
from women over and over again. So hopefully I can give a little bit of inspiration there and some tips.
So you downsized.
So we downsized and the kids were all on the same page. I made sure that their rooms were at least the same size. That's where they live. So it really didn't matter. The funny thing is I actually love the house we're in now better than I loved the other one. It worked. It could not have been better. Again, God on your side, right? And we reduced our taxes and mortgage by 60%, 60. Wow. So that just shows you you can take these, chances and they can be really worth it. So I left the company and we had the boutique now. So I had the boutique. He's working as a police officer. Here's what happened. I'm very proud of the fact that within 4 months of opening the doors, brought that business to a 6-figure in revenue business in 4 months, which was incredible. We don't have a shopping area around here. So it really took being very strategic in my social media marketing, learning Facebook ads. I mean, I had to do all the online stuff just to get people to know where it was. And I used online strategies to sell. Snow days, when I actually had to close the place, I had my best days because everyone shopped from home. So I very much integrated online. And I actually talked to a few boutiques this year because with COVID,
how do we survive?
This is what I did. I said, I did most of my sales online, even with a physical place. I did curbside pickup back then because I was targeting moms and I know how busy moms are, right? Drive up, here's your bag, right? Ordered online, things would sell out. So anyway, I was really proud of what I built. But here's the funny thing. I enjoyed building it I loved having my employees. I felt like I built myself another job though, to be honest with you. The margins in retail, not great. And even though it was a blast, I was like, this wasn't the end. And what kept happening was I had so many people coming to me and asking me, how did you do this? How did you leave corporate? How did you do all this marketing and this social media for your business? I had local businesses asking me, how did you do this? Right? Like new kid on the block, right? Coming in and being successful. And that's when I knew I needed to do something different. I started with the podcast just to kind of get the feelers out there. And then I knew, I'm like, I'm going to lean back into my gifts and my strengths. And my gifts and my strengths were in marketing, sales. I have my MBA. I understand business. And I really like to lead people. I was a leader. I led, like a team of over 200 people in the company that I was in, right? So those were my gifts. I kind of pushed them aside thinking they weren't going to apply in this world of the online entrepreneur. They totally matter. And I started to realize that there was a lot of online marketing being taught, but timeless business strategies were kind of being forgotten. And there are core things you have to be doing in your business at all times that businesses, since businesses existed, have had to do. How we do them now is a little different with the help of, online and all the things. But I really started to see a place for myself and, sold the boutique. So it's kind of cool. So the person that bought the boutique ended up buying the online. I had a whole online Shopify website. And they ended up buying the online component of it. I love how God works, right? So I closed down the actual physical boutique, sell the online. A boutique about a half an hour away came and bought every single piece of furniture, structure, everything. It was
beautiful.
The closing down of this business that I created was simple, easy. And I really prayed about that a lot. I mean, I was praying and meditating about, please let this be easy, because it seemed like it was going to be very hard. And I said, the perfect person's going to buy it. It's all going to work out. I really believed in that. And it really did play out that way. And it allowed me to pivot completely into full-time focusing on my coaching business that I have now. But here's the funny thing. This sounds so funny. So now we're a year post me leaving the company that I was with. And my husband's like, so when are you going to start making the same amount of money? I'm like, whoa, first of all, we
downside, dude.
I'm like, well, first of all, we were kind of hoping that I would get to a third of that. And so it was hard, and it's hard. And I don't blame him. Right. I mean, it's he was believing in me, but it's really hard for someone that's not in the entrepreneur space to know that it takes time, that you're going to try something. It may not work, then pivot, try, pivot, and finesse. And maybe not pivot entirely, but you're just trying to finesse it and get it to the next thing. I want to say it was, around that time that he's like, I think you should be looking for a job. And it was so crushing. I can remember crying that night.
I have this story and
right?
Yeah. I'm sure everybody's already heard me talk about it. Yeah. Oh, it lit a fire for me. So what happened for you?
100%. Same thing.
Yeah.
So while it was sad, I always tell every woman that I work with, they're coming from a place of
fear,
to protect yourself,
yeah.
Fear, all the things.
Yeah.
They don't understand what you're doing anyway, because it's usually pretty foreign unless you're with an entrepreneur. And if you're with an entrepreneur, then they get it anyway. So it's usually not a problem. So my whole thing is that I did the same thing. I said, well, you know what? One, I'm not giving up. I never wavered on me building my own thing. I did say, if I have to take a marketing, contracting, consulting job, which I totally could with my background, if I have to do something a little bit on the side to bring in some money, I will. But I did not want to even do that. I wanted to be fully focused on my business. And luckily, staying with it, believing, even at the point of I'm probably going to have to go and get a consultant job. Right about that time is when everything just started to click and things started to flow. And then we're at the point now where the business itself is bringing in what I was, making in my corporate job. Obviously, that's not all profit, right? You're investing in your business, you're investing in people. I've hired teammates, but we have huge plans for 2021 and where we're trying to take the business from there. So it was worth the long journey, but it was a journey. And there was a lot of, that was a major pivot on the boutique. And then really finding that belief in yourself and myself when, my husband it was rough. There was some rough patches there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Well, and I think that that's good that you're not, because something that people ask in our community all the time is like, what do I do when my spouse doesn't believe in me? And, I always say, much like you just experienced, with your husband, it's not necessarily that they don't believe in you. It's that they don't necessarily know how to show it. And so, because verbatim, do you think it's time to go look for a job? And I just was like, did you just hit me? It feels like you just hit me. I know where I was. It was right after my family relocated to Texas. And it felt really upsetting, but at no point was he saying, you, Lauren, I don't think you can do this. What he was saying is, I don't see it. I can't feel it. The cash isn't here. And I'm not feeling safe, right? It was his thing being projected. And so, the proof is in the pudding and your business has taken off. And what does your husband have to look forward to now?
He's retiring in January. So that was a dream for so long of he basically, as a police officer here in New York, after 20 years, you can retire. He's been there about 23, I think. So in those 3 years of when he could retire is also when I was building my business. And it was okay for him because it allowed him, there was some real positives with that, where he got to take a promotion that he could never take before. He got to become sergeant because I was traveling with my former company. He couldn't take that job. So he got to do some things like that, which was awesome. But then in the middle, I'd be like, oh my gosh, how is he going to retire? I don't know that he can retire. If I can't get this business to where I need it to be, how is he going to be able to do that? And this year, especially, massive growth to the point where it's like you leave whenever you want. And he really could have left maybe about 6 months ago, but he does love what he does. He really does. So it's a little bit hard for him to even make the decision. But the fact that we have this option and he is leaving, and he just got a couple adjunct professor roles with online universities because he got his master's while he was a police officer, which was awesome. And so just as this whole other chapter, is unfolding. I'm 46, he's 48. We're about to go into kind of this next phase, and it's really exciting. And I'm going to say I'm patting myself on the back for sticking with it, and hopefully your listeners, stick with it. I know it's hard, especially because here's what I would have said. If I was listening to me on a podcast, I would say, oh, well, it works for her or good for her, or whatever. Trust me, I have been there. I never gave up the dream of it and the belief that I know this is going to happen, even if it means XYZ, even if it means I've got to take a consulting job. I still would have done that. I would have never given up on this dream though. I would have taken a consulting kind of job and continued to build my business. There's no doubt about that.
That is so amazing. Well, praying and hoping and wishing are all fantastic things that can support in manifestation, but we know that it's not going to get the job done alone. So we know you pivoted away from the boutique, even though you were successful there, because of all of these gifts that you have in marketing and sales and leadership. I know you've got a new book that you just wrote called The Standout Breakout Formula, which is super exciting because it's right in alignment with all of that. So everybody listening knows that I'm all about takeaways. So I want to tap into your area of expertise for just a minute, Julie. Can you give us 3 tips for positioning yourself on social media, which clearly the lady knows how to do? She's got a successful podcast, an amazing coaching business, and she built this boutique from scratch and then sold it, which by the way, that also is super cool. We could do a whole episode. I would be personally very interested to figure out how you grow a business that you can sell. So, but let's focus on these.
As an aside, because you'll just love this, I used a webinar
to sell your boutique?
To get interest.
Stop.
I swear to God. I put together a presentation and I did a Zoom thing and I marketed it online.
Genius.
Locally. Yep. And that's how to talk about what the brand, what I built, all the things. Yep.
Genius. I am geeking out so hard, but I don't know that all the listeners are sharing in my passion for webinars. So let's focus on helping them grow their freelancing business, Julie. All right. 3, but thank you for sharing that with me. That is amazing. All right. 3 tips for positioning yourself on social media.
Yes. So I'm going to share with you some things that I wish I had known because I spun out on this. So the first thing is know who you're talking to. The number one thing that I see, especially with people just starting out, is that let's say they've picked their platform. I always say pick a platform, one platform to be your lead generation platform. Okay. It's not the platform to do everything, but it's your platform for lead generation. How are you going to find your clients? And for people, it's Instagram or LinkedIn. for the most part. You can use Facebook for Facebook groups and all those kinds of things, but that's not really your lead gen. That's where you're going to probably nurture people, right? So how are you going to find new people? Expand your network. Instagram, LinkedIn. What happens is that people muddy the waters and they have their, kind of their personal stuff. Their bio isn't on point. Because they're still kind of talking to everybody. So like, well, my Aunt Susan is on Instagram too. And I kind of want to no, if Instagram is your jam, I want you to just be showing up for your person. And when I say your person, it's you got to know her. It could be a business. It could be a business. You could be, maybe you're freelancing and trying to do things with a female entrepreneur. You got to know, what are their pain points? Where are they at right now? What are their struggles? What are they worried about? What's keeping them up at night? What are their fears? What do they want?
This is so good. And it's so true. And I already know what my audience is thinking, the newbies, because I've coached to this quite a bit. When you're starting from scratch, what do you do when you don't know? How do I figure out, I want to be a virtual assistant. I think this is great. I can start making money from home. This is fantastic. How does one go about finding out what the pain points of someone is who hires a virtual assistant?
Yeah. Well, you got to pick, who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with female entrepreneurs? Female entrepreneurs are always hiring virtual assistants, all the time. Well, which kind of ones? Coach? Let's say you're going to go after coaches. I want to go after women coaches, so someone like myself or Lauren or whatever, right? Okay, what do you think we're struggling with? Why would we need a VA? How are you going to help us? What's keeping us up at night? You're going to know, right? You're going to know if we're running these big businesses and we're doing all the things, we can't do all the things. We're going to be run down. We're going to have to maybe miss out on some things with our own family because we're trying to hold it. That's what you're going into the emotion, to the heart, right? You've got to dig in and know what they're struggling with. If you need to find out, you can do some surveys. There's things that you can do. Ask people. But the more that you can show up on social media where your bio is very clear, that's who you help and you help them achieve what? What problem are you solving? Be really, really clear, because that is how you start to stand out. Because every time someone's I don't know what to post, I don't know what to say, I always say, you probably don't know who you're talking to them. Because once you know who you're really talking to, because it's social media, we're actually trying to start conversation with people. It's got to be what's in their head. It's got to be what they're worried about. They've got to say, oh my God, how did you know I was feeling that way? I always say, you nailed it when someone will message you and say, it's you were talking to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on Facebook Lives, people are I totally needed to hear this right now. I'm yes, because I understand you. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And you'll get better and better. You keep learning it. I always say with everything, your ideal person and who you're targeting, your ideal client, that's going to continue to morph and you're going to know them deeper. And the more clients you get, the more you're going to go, oh, they're struggling with this or this. Yeah. That becomes your content. That becomes what you're talking about. That's so key. The second big thing is that I would really say, again, I already actually said it, is pick your platform. Pick one. Big thing I see people, the trap they fall in is they think they have to do all the platforms. I got to do Pinterest, LinkedIn, Instagram. I got to have pick a lead, for social media, pick a lead gen platform that you can go all in on to start, because otherwise you're going to get too distracted. You're going to get too distracted. And then the third piece that's so important is that I think that many people think that if I post, maybe have some nice hashtags, people will find me. No, do not wait to be found. You proactively go and find your clients. So for the freelancers listening, right? And let's use the same thing, a coach, an entrepreneurial coach. Where's my phone? Okay. I'm looking at my phone right now, guys. When you go to Instagram, okay, that little magnifying bar, the search feature, it's gold. You can find all your clients by literally searching for them and then actually connecting with them and something of value in the DMs. Once they connect back with you, or maybe you connect with them, you find them, get in the DMs. Make sure you're not being salesy, but make sure that you're connecting with your ideal client and how you can help them. The number one thing people want is help. If you can help someone, they're going to want to hear from you, right? So go proactively find your person. I think that we hope that we're going to post something, and maybe if I put a hashtag in, somebody might come across it. No, we want to be so proactive in building our business that we are proactively finding our clients our ideal person and connecting with them directly.
I love it. So good. If you guys want to hear more tips from Julie, I know she's got a ton. Clearly, we just heard her whole journey and all of her amazing expertise. Again, her book is called The Standout Breakout Formula. You can find it on Amazon, and we are posting that link over on freemamaradio.com, as well as all the ways that you can follow and connect with the amazing Julie. Okay, before we wrap up here, I've got one last question for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. I think you probably already know this, but the mission of the Free Mama is to make sure that no mother has to choose between family and financial stability. So knowing that and what we've talked about today, is there one last piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes. Is that you can do this, because it's going to be hard. You got to stick with it, because one of the things that I have learned is that freedom is everything. Money's awesome, but the freedom is where there's nothing like it. And so time is going to pass. A year will pass. 2 years will pass. No matter what, you can't stop time. If at the end of a year or 2 years, you have built a business that gives you that freedom, would that be worth it? Probably all saying yes. Don't say 3 months from now. Don't say 6 months from now. Know that if in 2 years, if I had this thing that could give me that freedom and replace the day job or then stick with it. Don't give up. Play the long game.
So good. I love that so much. Julie, thank you so much for coming on Free Mama Radio and for sharing your story with us. It's been amazing to hear. Congratulations to you and your husband. I'm tempted to send him a bottle of champagne. She did it for you. I love it. Amazing.
Thank you so much. You're the best. And I just love everything that you're doing for women. So thank you so much for having me on.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Free Mama Radio. Don't forget to check out Free Mama TV right here on YouTube for hundreds of how-to videos and interviews to help you start, grow, and scale a virtual business from home. If you want to join a community of tens of thousands of moms just like you, make sure you join the Free Mama Movement group over on Facebook. And lastly, if you want to learn more about how we can do this together, work to achieve your goals, and make you our next success story, check out my free training at thefreemamamovement.com. I'll see you next time.